So when you talk about consistency, how often, when we fast forward to deeper going on into your journey, how often these days do you find yourself writing music or recording music? How often are you in the practice of the art?
It's at this point, like nowadays, it's like every so often. I'll say twice a month I'll write like a song. It's because like I'm shifting into fatherhood now. I have a little girl that's due any day, so I'm adjusting to that. It's a new journey in my life. But back then, it used to take me like a week to like write one song. Like nowadays, it'll take me like I said like an hour or two to just come up with something.
Okay. What's the writing process like for you? I spoke to some people who, write down, pen and pad and notepad, some people who write down in the phone, some people who record audio messages, some people who just write at the studio on the spot, they put it together, some people who just put the verse together in their head and don't never necessarily put words, to paper or anything like that.
I never did that. The only thing that I did was like something that had got, stuck in my head. I was in the shower freestyling one time and I did a hook to a song called Grind Harder featuring Prez Abe, who was Ed's band mate of mine from 2020 Empire. That was like the only time like I ever freestyled something and remembered inside my head. But I would normally do notebooks, but then it was only like one time I had wrote a song in my phone, and from there, everything been up in my phone ever since. So that's what it's like for me.
So you sort of talked about some of your early studio experiences. Tell me what some of your more recent studio experiences have been like. Like what's the process you go through when you get to the studio? You talked about writing throughout the week. Do you sort of have a beat that you are writing in throughout the week? You go to the studio and
I find like beats and stuff. Some be up on YouTube. I'll leave some out. So then that way, I can put them up on all platforms. Or I'll just, for the most part, I have producers. Shout out to Lee Pitts. Killer Made It is his name. That's one of my producers. He real good with the beats and stuff. He inspiration for real.
Okay, so talk to me about some of what's the rapport like with you and him? What is it about his production style that sort of draws the best out of you, or that sort of, makes you want to engage with him and collaborate with him? Talk to me about that.
I don't know, it's something about like the melodies and like the bass, like his beats, it don't sound like, the average beat like you would hear out here. So it's like, it has like its own, he has his own sound. So from there I had to like develop my own sound. A lot of artists use auto-tune. I use it here and there, but like I don't engage in every track to have auto-tune on it. So, I like to try to keep it natural.
Okay. What's some of the artists that you grew up being inspired by? Like when you talked about having your first introduction to music, and your mom and your brother being in the studio and y'all was recording the different beats. What were some of the artists that you were listening to at that time period? And then what's some of the artists that you've grown connections to as you've gotten older?
I listened to a little bit of everybody. The first album I ever got was Ludacris Word of Mouth. Then from then, A-Ball, MJG, UGK was some of my favorite. I grew up to them. Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Westside Connection. But my favorite of all time is Bone Thugs and Harmony. Busy Bone, that's my number one, for real.
Okay, what is it about Bone Thugs and Harmony that really draws you to them?
Fast rap, the flowing, like there was no other sound like that. As far as like Twista go, it was the fast rap for me.
Okay, you talked about Bone Thugs and Harmony, and these are some of the people that you was, inspired by, and having Ludacris was one of your first albums. What's some of the artists as you got older into your, into your musical journey, and as you kept growing as an artist, was it any other new artists that came out after them and that you grew up listening to that you also felt inspired by?
T.I. for sure. Here in town, you know, we got Blazo. That's one of the artists. Gangsta Haj. I grew up listening to him as well, you know. R.I.P. to him. You know, we got a lot of greats here as well, but you know, I listen to all local artists. But like Blazo, he inspired me as well. You know, I was 18, senior in high school, getting ready to graduate. Got kicked out of class for playing his music.
Okay. Yeah. Niggas gon' sell they soul for them Andrew Jacksons. Translate the culture for them crackers, that's a sick transaction. From when they with you with them white folks, they gon' kick your back. And when the captain asks what happened, they give reenactments.
Go back broke, bitch, I'ma go fed. Trap it out like Jeezy, bought that loaf cause I want more bread. Ain't no fucking up my motion, what you mean? Let you hold 10. You bitches be embarrassing. I don't even hold hands, got that shawty all of my